Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of In Her Wallet, a podcast helping women around the globe take control of their finances for good and build better financial futures, one episode at a time. What we're talking about today is workplace benefits. The reason why I wanted to create an episode on this topic is because I remember my first day of being onboarded to a full time job. I was happy, excited, but at the same time, very overwhelmed with the amount of information shared with me on that day, both on the work side, but also by the HR. Had to sign, I think that meeting was about 2 hours. I had to sign a bunch of papers, which felt like I was signing off my life. But obviously, I decided to prioritize actual work information that day and learning more about my position versus my benefits. I thought, later on I'll figure it out. And you know what happened? Few months passed by, and I actually found myself in a position where I missed out on some of the big benefits that my employer was actually covering for me. And so today, my goal is that you leave this listening to this episode knowing what workplace benefits are, what different types of work benefits exist, um, what benefits you are entitled to in Canada, as well as nice to have ones that you can actually negotiate as part of your compensation package. And to help us answer these questions, I have an amazing guest, Katrina Sinclair, who is the Vice President of Business Development for Canada's first B Corp certified employee benefits advisory firm, Davis Benefits. Katrina brings over 10 years of experience. Welcome, Katrina.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's such a pleasure to have you, Katrina. Let's dive into the whole workplace benefits conversation. When I first encountered workplace benefits myself as a full time employee, I was fresh out of university. I clearly didn't know much about it. So, can we perhaps start with unpacking what employee workplace benefits are and why are they an important part of your compensation package?
Yeah, for sure. So, group benefits are basically benefits that are part of your compensation, part of your employment package. And it's cost effective coverage for you and your family. And when I say cost effective, if you were to go out into the marketplace and try and purchase individual benefits on your own, those benefits tend to be expensive and not a lot of coverage. So, by having it as part of a group, as part of your employment, they're able to offer increased coverage limits as well as subsidized pricing for everyone. And then,
So, it's a win win.
exactly. So, it gives you access to something that you wouldn't necessarily have on your own. And then, when your employer is covering your health and dental coverage, it is actually tax free. And what I mean when I say that is the portion that they're covering for the health and dental does not go on your T4 at the end of the year. So it's actually free coverage that they're giving you to support you and your family needs.
So it's additional basically money to the salary that you earn that you can spend on your wellness, on your health, etc., etc.
Mhm.
So today we're going to be focusing on those group benefits. And Katrina, can we discuss different types or most common types of this group benefits that employers offer in Canada?
Yeah, so group benefits, there's usually a fair amount of line items. We've got health insurance, dental insurance,
Mhm.
vision coverage, and then there's some of the core benefits like life insurance, critical illness, and disability. Some of the more top employers look at implementing additional kind of side accounts that are called healthcare spending accounts or wellness accounts. There's fertility benefits that can get added in there, retirement plans, and then flex plans where you can choose higher or lower coverage. You can choose vacation days, some maybe some negotiating some flex time.
So really, if we were honestly, it's up to your imagination almost, from what I understand. But if we were to break down these benefits into different groups, we would say probably health, then wellness, kind of credits for your personal development. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then financial, which is your RSP contributions and employee stock purchase plans and so on, time off and leave benefits, and fertility. Or I would say those probably fall under the health as well, right?
So each employer makes a decision of what type of benefits they want to offer their employees. And that
Hmm.
decision can dictate, is it a flex plan or is it a one size fits all plan on
Hmm.
especially the health and wellness side. So you have some employers which say, here's your plan. It's a, let's say 80% coverage, everybody gets it. And it may include fertility benefits, it may not. That's at their discretion when they're building the coverage for everyone. And then some
Right.
employers will choose a flex plan where you can kind of navigate the different buckets. But then the RSP and the more financial side is usually separate from the group benefits.
Mm-hmm. Great. Before we continue our conversation, I want to mention that every episode on season two is video recorded. Katrina is just looking absolutely gorgeous. So if you prefer to watch this episode, go ahead to our YouTube channel, In Her Wallet, and watch this episode in full there. Let's move on. Katrina, from your experience, what are some of the most commonly overlooked benefits?
Yeah, one that a lot of benefit plans have is what's called an Employee Family Assistance Program,
Mm-hmm.
EAP or EFAP. We love some acronyms in insurance to tell you the truth. And what it offers is a short term counseling model that is accessible to you and your spouse and your dependents. If you need someone to talk through something and something that's what we call more acute or short term. So let's say I'm struggling to get to the gym with motivation. I need to kind of figure out how to set up better habits and maybe what my triggers are for my bad habits. I can call my EAP, book an appointment with a counselor, and talk through some of those things. Maybe it's with regards to the gym, coping with a loss, dealing with dealing with relationship issues with a
Mm-hmm.
partner or parents or family members. It's a support for someone to really get some unbiased guidance from a professional. And as women, we take on a lot, and more so the caregiving roles. So that can create such a heavy burden on our shoulders. And actually talking to someone can help you sort through and kind of explain yourself to someone, knowing that it's completely confidential and you're saving your insured benefits, which are your uh, paramedicals, so your social worker benefits for later. So this is actually
Mm-hmm.
something that you can access on the go and get some nice support.
Great. I didn't know of that program. And I honestly, if I were you guys listening right now, I wasn't sure if that is part of my employee benefits package. I'd go and check that right now. So, Katrina, EAP, is that correct?
Correct.
Employee Assistance Program. Definitely check that out. So, again, goes to show. I didn't know much about workplace benefits when I was working full time, and obviously, I wasn't maximizing what was offered to me, which probably added additional costs and I was paying out of my pocket. Katrina, can we talk a little bit about why it's important to maximize these workplace benefits for women?
Your group benefits is compiled of so many different line items, and some of those line items are meant for more catastrophic events. So we're talking like death and disability and things like that. But the health and dental portion is really more to support your everyday use. And education is key. Understanding what you'd like help with and what your goal is for the end result. And so understanding that women are different than men with hormone cycles, each of us have different family history, we have different diet, we have different allergy. And so understanding what you want help with, and then looking at the practitioners that are covered under your benefits in order to access maybe a naturopath or a dietitian or a counselor to really talk through what you want to go through.
You obviously work with a lot of different companies here in Canada and helping them onboard different workplace benefits. Can we split these benefits into must offer by companies and nice to offer? Is it correct to say that, um, for example, when you look in general at the tech industry and tech companies, there is a certain standard. When you look at financial services company, there's this standard. Would that be right to assume?
Yep, and that's where, as insurance advisors, we provide benchmarking coverage reports. So we would provide
Mhm.
a detailed report to that client to say, here's what your competitors are doing to make sure that your employer package is keeping pace with what others are doing so that you're not surprised in a candidate meeting where they say, well, the shop across the street has XYZ benefits and you guys don't
Mhm.
have as much. So it's really having those kind of thoughtful and educational discussions.
And from a consumer perspective, obviously, unless I talk to my girlfriend and ask, oh, you work at Microsoft, I'm going to be an engineer, I'm going through hiring process at Amazon, let's say, this is what Amazon's offering. Unless I do that, is there any other way for a potential employee to find out what the industry standard for benefits is? Is that information easily accessible online? And would you be able to share any resources on that?
Unfortunately, that's when we think of kind of open benchmarking, we think of kind of Glassdoor and the salary where it's like you can kind of look what does the average software developer make, what does the average customer success relationship manager make, and you can kind of look at an open board where people are sharing things.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, those don't contain information on benefits these days that the advisors do have access to industry benchmarking, but it's not made public. And so, if there is any questions, and if any of your viewers have questions around their industry, I'm happy to provide free reports to anybody who asks. That we have the
Oh,
accessibility. We're not going to hold back on sharing that
we're not
education.
gatekeeping.
No, we're not gatekeeping at all. So if there's any questions, I'm
Oh,
happy to provide that.
Katrina, thank you so much. Thank you for offering that. Let's wrap up part one. So we kind of, I think, covered on the basic level what workplace benefits are, different types, etc. Now, I want to look at three different types of personas, namely because we as women go through different stages in our lives. So, I want to talk about workplace benefits for co op students, workplace benefits for women actively building their careers as full time employees, and women who are getting ready to take on the facey title of being a mother, or maybe they are already mothers. So, let's dive in. Katrina, let's start with students who get seasoned employment as part of co op programs or internships. Are they usually entitled to any benefits?
So typically, these co-op students, interns are not offered benefits as part of their compensation, and usually it's very minimal compensation. And because they're still on school terms and school calendar years, their coverage would usually be through their college or the university for the whole calendar year. So you don't see employers stepping up and trying to replace that coverage because the coverage is already in place.
Yeah, that was my guess. I mean, having completed multiple internships and co-op programs as part of my bachelor's degree at UBC, that was the situation. But the reason why I wanted to ask, I thought maybe something changed. So that's good to know. I do want to tell our listeners that we have an episode coming on negotiating your workplace benefits next week. I will definitely address this. Maybe there is a chance for you as a student to negotiate some benefits. So definitely stay tuned for that and keep an eye out. Katrina, let's move on to women who are actively building careers as full time employees. Um, what benefits do you think this group of women should pay close attention to and perhaps even negotiate?
Yeah, health and dental benefits are important to your total compensation with your employer. So having that peace of mind that you're covered if anything happens can be a big value add. Like I know
Mhm.
from a personal example of mine, um, injuring my Achilles and in tennis and being able to book a physio right there, having a flex plan that we do, I was able to flex more dollars into my health spending account to get extra physio on my ankle and coordinate with my partner's plan. And so having that kind of peace of mind can be really, really nice knowing that, okay, if I need it, it's there. If you wake up, you have a crinked neck because you slept wrong, that you have access to these
Mhm.
practitioners. I'm not sure if
Mhm.
you've had experience with accessing some of these massage or physio or things like that.
Yes, RMT was my favorite one. I would get an RMT every month. Oh, those good old days.
Hmm.
But okay, so healthcare benefit is obviously a very big one. It's basically free dollars that you can spend on your lovely yourself and your health. Can we break down what's the common thread of for companies to include in your healthcare benefit? So we did mention dental, vision, health. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and one thing I'll make note of too is one thing you can negotiate is your benefits to start on day one. You're starting with a new company. Typically, there's that 3 month probation period to say, oh, are you going to work out? And the benefits typically follow that 3 month because the employer's written it into the insurance contract. But what they don't say is it is up for negotiation. So you can
Mm,
negotiate that your benefits start day one, not the day after your 3 month probation. And this can be an added value for you because then you don't have a gap in coverage. Because if you do need dental work or a massage or things like that after a week or two with the company, you have those benefits in place compared to waiting those 3 months. So that can be a good negotiating point when you're going kind of back and forth with dotting the I's and crossing the T's of what that perfect offer looks like.
very good point. I recently watched a movie called The Good Nurse. She's actually the main actress, Jessica Chastain, there, the main character. She's actually going through something like that. And Katrina, that's a very important point to bring up. Thank you.
No, but when we're talking health and dental benefits, your typical health benefits will include about 80% drug coverage, about $500 per practitioner for paramedicals. And when we say paramedicals, we're talking RMT, physio, chiro, naturopath, osteopath, dietitian. There's usually a long list of what paramedicals are covered under your benefits, and typically those are covered at $500 per practitioner per year
Mm,
per person in your family. So you would get $500, spouse would get $500, and each child would get $500, which is great.
got it.
And
And then same for kind of dental.
yep. And then for dental, we tend to see about 80% coverage on the basic, which is all your regular cleaning work, which is the majority of the claims. There is a separate bucket called major dental, which is famously at 50%. This is the more expensive and extensive work. That's
Mm,
bridges and like so the work on the cavity is under the basic 80%, but that crown that may need to go down is only covered at 50%. So you
mhm.
typically we do see employees paying a little bit out of pocket for their dental benefits up and usually having an overall maximum of about $1,500 per year. And again, that's per person. $1,500 for
Mhm.
you, $1,500 for spouse and each child.
And if I'm not mistaken, on the vision, it's about $200 per year or per 2 years for a vision check.
Vision runs, yeah, usually on. every 2 years. So when all
Yeah.
the other benefits run per calendar year, your vision, which is going to include your eye exam, getting your eyes checked, because I always say we've all turned into computer athletes these days. So making sure that we keep up to date with just less strain on our eyes and on our vision, that getting checked just to make sure everything's okay. The $200 usually goes towards contacts or
Mm-hmm.
glasses, prescription glasses, and can even qualify for prescription sunglasses too.
Totally. And so all of that, obviously, we mentioned healthcare is a very big one. I think for women who are in their early years, I don't know, 25, 40 years old, they are actively working many hours. They're building that financial foundation for themselves. Financial benefits are also there a big part. I think they're the second vital benefit in the compensation package,
Mhm.
and that can include, for example, RSP, registered retirement saving plans, matches. Let's explain what those are and why they are valuable.
Yeah, retirement plans are a hot topic these days, where your group RSP is basically free money from your employer to help you save for retirement. So, what we typically see is employers matching at about 2% to start. Again, top employers, we see upwards of 7% to 8% sometimes. But to start, usually it starts at 2%. And that means 2% of your paycheck will go directly into an RSP, and the employer will match your contribution. So if $50 is coming off your paycheck, the employer is also putting a $50 towards that RSP. So you're getting $100 per paycheck to save for retirement, which can also qualify for first time home buyers, which if you're buying a house or a condo for the first time, and lifelong learning. So that would be going back to school for a master's or
Yeah.
a second degree. But
So again, very valuable because it's almost like free money. I don't want to be using that saying throughout the episode, but this is what it is, right?
yeah, it's part of your compensation that's embedded in these benefits, right? So there's dollar amounts that are accessible to you for your use, that you want to make sure that you're taking care, that you're accessing it and taking care of maybe what you need for existing conditions, but also on the preventative side, right? Because if we can take care of ourselves in the wellness part, where it's maybe chiro or physio or things like that on maybe a niggly injury, that can prevent it from becoming more catastrophic, especially when we're working 40 hours plus sometimes a week. So really
Mm-hmm.
making sure that we're educating ourselves on that wellness piece and saying, okay, what do I have listed, and how can I access those practitioners to empower myself, and actually look at some of these financial tools like the RSP and say, okay, am I on track for retiring at 65 or
Exactly.
70 or 70, or maybe it's 55 you want to retire at, and kind of go the other way. And it's doing those calculations to make sure that you're aware of, are you on track with your goal or not?
And again, that money is coming out constantly, regularly out of your, I'm not sure, like whether you're paid bi-weekly or monthly, that's a consistent contribution towards your future. So, a very, very big step towards setting that financial foundation for yourself down the road whenever you decide to retire.
Right? Because you can set it and forget it, right?
Exactly.
It's programmed, it's taken care of, and it's nice to have that peace of mind being like retirement, check. Move on to the more important things and just have that kind of run for more your long-term goals, and focus on some short-term goals.
Yeah. And I think another financial benefit that I am absolutely a big fan of, and thanks to this benefit, I was able to really save well for myself, and that's how I really left corporate world to start building in her wallet. And the platform that I'm building for women is the employee stock purchase plan. So let's talk a little bit about that, because that's also a very big financial benefit.
These are typically built with a lawyer where the employer needs to quantify the share price, the rules of the program, who qualifies to be able to get access, what if they leave the company, what if they're let go, all these different administrative levels. And so typically the employer would incorporate their ESOP strategy and plan with a lawyer. But if they wanted to incorporate it with a flex plan, that's when we would assist, because being able to purchase extra shares or things like that, extra vacation days, can be built in with the benefits into a flex plan. But typically, those are more discussed with the lawyers.
But in a nutshell, what employee stock options plans are, correct, is
Mhm.
you agree again for deductions from your biweekly or monthly paycheck to purchase a certain amount of um, value of the company's stocks that you work for, and then depending on the contract, your employer will match that up to a maximum. Katrina, let's finally talk about women who are preparing to take on the role of a mother. What are the unique or specific benefits to mothers?
Yeah, this is such a big one and such an important one that it is really not talked about a lot. And first, let's start with fertility, thinking about getting pregnant and how your benefits can support. And so, what I mentioned earlier is some employers choose to include fertility benefits in their health coverage, some do not.
Mhm.
This is an option for them to have it as a listed item, and this is where they can choose fertility drugs or fertility drugs and treatments. Because when we're talking about egg retrieval or IVF, there's drugs to prepare the system for egg extraction. When we're talking IVF and treatments, we're talking about ultrasounds, and can even, if you have a partner and there needs to be sperm washing, different things. So it depends on your policy if that is included. And it's becoming more popular with employers who are really investing in their diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies, so DE&I, to really empower their female employees with starting a family. And so fertility is one to always have a look at your benefits if they are included. And then when you are pregnant and are incubating
On
little
to the next
baby,
stage.
on to the next stage of you're pregnant. Now it's the 9 months of planning and getting ready for baby to be earthside. But sometimes things don't go as planned.
Mhm.
There can be pregnancy complications, and this is where it is a medical complication that can qualify you for EI sickness benefits or your short term disability
Mhm.
plan. And so, if you're put on bed rest, if you're given restrictions by your doctor and need to go off work early, this is where your employer, if they have a short-term disability plan, you would be applying with the doctor's note to the insurance company, or if they don't have short-term disability, you would be applying to the government for EI sickness benefits,
Mhm.
which could cover you for up to 26 weeks of the pregnancy.
Mhm. Mhm. And when you have a baby, there is
Yeah, so
mat
baby
leave,
is Earth's,
right?
yeah, baby is Earthside. It's exciting, lots going on. Time to really step into the mom shoes. And so again, depending on your employer, if you have that short-term disability program, some employers have a mat leave top up. This is a top up for the first 6 or 8 weeks of you being off, because there is a medical recovery from delivering if you gave birth vaginally or if you gave birth via C-section.
Mm-hmm.
There's different recovery times deemed under short-term disability for both. So depending which one, your short-term disability would cut a check for you to top up those first 6 or 8 weeks, which is great.
Amazing.
But then going on to mat leave, it really is different in Canada versus the US. Canada, we can be off for 12 and up to 18 months. And that is very, very competitive compared to some of the other countries in the globe,
Mm-hmm.
really. When we look at our neighbors to the south and the Americans, typically a mother would get 6 weeks unpaid for uh,
Only 6 weeks.
mat leave.
Oh my God. Unpaid. That's crazy. And in Canada, let's clarify, mat leave is paid. Is that 100% paid or 50% paid?
So there's a maximum per week, and there's a calculation on the government website. So it says 55% of your income up to a maximum
Mm-hmm.
of, I believe it's $650 or something like
Got
that.
it.
So basically, you're working with the government, and they are sending you checks every week to help with taking care of baby and bills and things like that while baby's getting used to being on this side of the world.
Mm-hmm. So, Katrina, you shared such a wealth of knowledge there. Just to recap, so fertility benefit and EI sickness benefit are not compulsory for employers to offer. They are not must to offer. Is that correct?
So fertility is kind of a topper benefit. It's kind of a nice to have, as we
Yeah,
talked about before. The EI sickness benefits is on the government
got it.
side. So this is outside of your
Got it.
employer, and this is something that as long as you have EI deducting off your paycheck and you meet the minimum hours, you have access to this sickness benefits regardless if you're pregnant or not, that if you are struggling with mental health and need time off work by recommendation of your doctor, this is something that's built into for all Canadians that are eligible for EI. So you
Got it.
have EI if you get laid off, EI sickness benefits, and then EI parental leaves, which are the mat leaves,
And then
different
for
bucket.
the mat leave, is that standard for everyone to offer that in Canada? Or is that also nice to have? And we do sometimes meet companies in Canada who do not offer mat leave.
Yeah, and this gets into the realm of employment law, but in Canada, that you're allowed to take the 12 months off, and the employer does need to hold your
Position.
job or hold your spot. Yeah, so it is a must-have, and that's regulated by our government.
Got it. Okay, that's good to know. And finally, my final question to you, how about daycare expenses? Do companies cover that? I assume that's more of a nice to have, but can you give me just a short description because we're on time?
Yeah, daycare is a very big nice to have, and it's great that the government is working on the $10 a day daycare to help parents budget for this because it can be as much as your rent, really. And so when we talk about what the employer could offer to help, typically we see this in the form of a wellness account. So those are those add-on accounts I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, where it could be health spending account or a wellness
Hmm,
account. And that wellness account can be for CrossFit or Peloton or yoga or transit passes or daycare expenses. So it'd be an account where you'd submit a receipt and get paid back. So $100 in daycare, you'd submit to the account, you get reimbursed the $100. The only thing when you're dealing with a wellness account, it is considered a taxable benefit, which means that $100 that you were just paid back goes on your T4.
got it.
So it'll influence though your taxable income at the end of the year.
Katrina, let me ask you, what if someone is in the same shoes as I was back in the day? What if they don't quite 100% understand the benefits that are offered to them? What can they do? Where can they go? Who can they talk to?
Each employer has a benefits advisor behind their plan. And the nice thing is you can go to your HR department, but understanding that you may not want to talk about the reason for accessing your benefits or even some of the medications that you're on with your HR department because they're personal. And so having a benefits advisor and their service team available and really forward facing with employees, the employee could contact us or whoever the benefits advisor is and talk through what's going on because sometimes you'll access a bit of the benefit plan, but we'll also look into government subsidies. We'll also look at if you're in a pharmacare province and what that looks like in getting a pharmacare number. And maybe there's pharmaceutical bursaries and we can get you a card. There's lots of different avenues that we can use the benefits, but also go into other buckets as well.
Super important point. Thank you for sharing that, Katrina. I think a lot of people will find that tip valuable. Okay, let's move on to our final part. I just have two more questions for you. And these are more of a short form answer, almost like a one worded, one sentence answer. Tell me, what's financial freedom or financial security to you?
Financial freedom for me is safety, being in insurance, being aware of all the curveballs life can throw at us. I want to have the peace of mind that if the curveball comes my way, I had a
You're
plan.
safe. And what
Yes, I'm safe.
advice would you give to women who wish to achieve that financial security and safety? What should they do?
Honestly, educate, educate, educate. Knowledge is power. Understand the system, partner with experts you trust, know your budget, know your risk tolerance, be aware of your gaps, because once we have it figured out and everything becomes clear, that peace of mind is priceless.
Katrina, thank you. I absolutely love your answer. This is what we're working on behind the scenes. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Yep, you can follow my Instagram, katrina.benefitsadvisor, or feel free to add me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn, just Katrina Sinclair.
Perfect. I will include all of Katrina's information in the episode description. Ladies, thank you once again. As always, I want you to take credit for showing up for yourself and your future today because every time you increase your financial knowledge, you increase what's financially possible for you. See you next week at the negotiation episode and hope you all have a great week.